And hello, what's up everyone? Welcome to the special Saturday edition in this series on my Instagram TV, The Gospel of Life. I want to say thank you for taking some of your time to reflect with me on a couple of key points and also hidden messages that are in the gospel passage of the flight into Egypt. The flight into Egypt is in the Gospel of St. Matthew chapter 2 verse 13, and some of these key points, they relate to the Immaculate Heart of Mary and Our Lady of Sorrows. We're also going to talk about a key figure, an example of a man who was waiting to rise up, Saint Joseph. Jesus is, of course, perfect. Jesus is the ultimate example of manhood. But second to Jesus, for example of masculinity, is Saint Joseph. And I'm also going to talk about the schemes of the devil. So let's get right to it. The gospel passage, the flight into Egypt, and it says, "When they had departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, 'Rise, take the child and his mother, flee to Egypt, and stay there until I tell you. Herod is going to search for the child to destroy him.' Joseph rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed for Egypt. He stayed there until the death of Herod, that what the Lord has said through the prophet might be fulfilled. Out of Egypt I called my son." I want to continue just a little bit more. "When Herod realized that he had been deceived by the Magi, he became furious. He ordered a massacre of all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity, 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time he had ascertained from the Magi. Then was fulfilled what had been said through Jeremiah the prophet. A voice was heard in Ramah, sobbing and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children, and she would not be consoled, since there were no more." Alright, so I did talk about, I'm going to mention the Immaculate Heart of Mary. This is the second sorrow of Mary's 7 sorrows. And since Jesus was a baby, ever since he was a baby, Mary is already dealing with the pain of knowing that her son is going to suffer. First sorrow of Mary is when Saint Simeon in the temple told Mary that your son will be the cause of the rise and fall of many in Israel, in a silent contradiction, and a sword will pierce your soul. So Mary already knew that her son was going to suffer, and she had to deal with that emotional pain. Little did she know, although she knew suffering was going to happen, to what extent. It began since he was a baby. The devil himself already wanted to put to death the Son of God. Speaking of the devil, that's going to come later on. And Mary's immaculate. Because of Immaculate Conception, Mary feels emotional pain, physical pain more than anybody. Her senses are heightened because she's exempted from the stain of original sin. She has perfect love for God, perfect heart, which means she also suffers more intensely than anybody. So Mary went through the suffering, the emotional pain of her child being persecuted. They had to flee to Egypt, Joseph, Mary, and the child. Mary also experiences physical pain more than anybody. So she feels the cold weather, right? The brutal cold weather during that time of the year. You know, Joseph and Mary, they lived in poverty. Who knows how much food they even had at all? How are they able to obtain food? What hurt her more was the emotional pain of her son suffering that physical pain, the cold weather, and knowing that they want to kill her son. Now, let's go to Saint Joseph. Saint Joseph, like I said, is next to Jesus, the ultimate example of masculinity. This is what Joseph had to deal with. Saint Joseph is not just a guy that was there as, oh, he's just the foster father of Jesus, or he's just the husband of Mary. Saint Joseph displays ultimate masculinity, strength, courage, protecting the most beautiful person ever, Mary, and the Son of God, Jesus. Joseph's cane, it is not just a cane that helped with walking and going up the hills. Saint Joseph's cane is a sword combating evil. Saint Joseph encounters spiritual warfare. The most demonic activity in the history of the world is the killing of the Son of God. Even though Jesus, he submitted to his passion, he voluntarily submitted to the hands of sinners to be crucified and die for our redemption. He did it out of love. Jesus conquered death with the ultimate act of love. But the men who actually put Jesus to death, the men who actually did these actions, were instruments of demons. They thought they were going to win. I would also say that the most demonic activity ever is the killing of babies. In the flight into Egypt, Herod is doing both. He wants to kill the Son of God. He also calls for the massacre of children. Men were called to fight for beauty and fight for the dignity of life. And of course, there's many different ways to uphold the dignity of life. I get it. But in this series of Gospel of Life, I'd like to specifically highlight just a little bit more standing up against abortion and standing up for the unborn and for pregnant women who need help. And as men, it's time for us to rise up and get involved. Now, your call might be different. We all have a unique call. Maybe you're called to Pro-Life Movement to offer prayers, offer fasting and sacrifices, maybe twice a week, fast. And offer that sacrifice for babies who are in danger of being aborted, and also for women who are pregnant, who have no help, who feel hopeless. Offer the sacrifice to God for protection of the unborn, and for pregnant women who are in difficult situations to receive authentic help. There are all different kind of ways. Maybe you can get into a pro-life movement with something more action-based. But we're all called to stand up for life. St. Joseph protected life. Whether the baby is an unborn or a newborn, we are called as men to fight evil. And with love, stand up for the unborn, the dignity of life, and for pregnant women. And the devil does not want to see men step up and rise as St. Joseph. The devil likes to just twist things up and keep men to fall into the lies. So speaking of the lies, Jesus in the Gospel of John chapter 8 verse 44, he says that the devil is both the father of lies and a murderer since the beginning. There is no truth in him. So we see right here that Herod, I would say, is possessed by a demon. Even though in the text, it's Herod who is making a call, right? Yes, it's him in the physical form, but clearly Herod is possessed by a demon. How do we know that? Like I said, the most demonic activity ever is the kidding of the Son of God. I would also say the most demonic activity ever is the kidding of babies, the kidding of children. Herod is doing both, attempted to do both at the same time. Another clue of Herod being possessed by a demon is that he's full of pride. It says here that King Herod heard this. He was greatly troubled at hearing about the newborn king, and assembling all the chief priests and the scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. So he's panicking. He's full of pride, right? Pride is making yourself your own God. He doesn't want anybody taking his place, so he has envy. He also has lust, as we see later on when Jesus is older, that King Herod commits adultery, right? Marrying the wife of his brother, and who knows what other lustful activity he was into during his time as being a corrupt king. So we have pride, envy, anger. Herod is angry, and we have the other deadly sins are gluttony, greed, and sloth. But I think it's very clear that Herod was consumed by so much pride, envy, anger, and maybe even lust. The irony is that yes, Jesus is of royal lineage. Jesus is of the lineage of King David. However, Jesus' kingdom is not of this world. Jesus' kingdom is the kingdom of heaven. So Herod is just panicking about supposedly the threat of a king taking his place. A newborn king, a baby, has him completely riled up. And like Jesus said in the gospel of John 8:44, the devil is the father of lies and a murderer. There's no truth in him, a murderer from the beginning. The devil presents lies as very attractive truths, as something that actually sounds pretty good, and loves to use hashtags or other slogans to get his way, which is all about destruction, murder, theft. The devil, there is no good in him. He has no limits to his desires at all. The devil has no qualms, as we see in the gospel of right here, Matthew, the flight to Egypt, about the kidding of babies. The devil has no limitation to desire. The devil, all he wants is to see the whole world in his grasp, to see the whole world in hell, and people leading each other to hell. He's a murderer. He's also a father of lies, as we see with these lies, right? He comes up with, for example, hashtag women's rights, pro-choice. So I guess if we're anti-abortion, we're against people having choice. You see what I mean? So there's pro-choice, women's right, human rights, abortionist, health care. See how the devil is an expert of lies? Now, of course, we have our Lord Jesus Christ. By his precious blood and resurrection, we are redeemed. Jesus conquers. But right now, we are living in times that clearly the world is following the devil, and I invite you guys to offer more prayers, more fasting, more prayer time, contemplated prayer, be more of a community, read the Bible, pray the rosary, pray the chapter Mary Seven Sorrows. We need to invoke heaven more than ever. The devil, he has no limitation to desires. He has no qualms about just going all out with the killing of children, whether it's abortion or in different ways. Also the spiritual killing of children, right? Like attacking the faith, also dividing families, war, terrorism, violence, setting cities on fire. The devil right now is more upset more than ever. It could be because he knows his time is short. Maybe that's it. But it's time for us to, I can't stress enough, to rise up. Don't let the devil's lies get to you. Again, you don't have to do something that's completely extraordinary. But I ask you guys as men to rise up and to do everything with great love. What the saints talk about all the time. Whatever you're called to do, no matter how small or big it may seem to the world, do everything with love. As long as you rise up and get involved in some way, get involved into the battle. It's going to be a little bit dirty. It's going to be discouraging at times. There will be times of despair. The more you really love something, the more you get involved, the more you're going to get discouraged. You're probably going to get people who hate you, or you're probably going to feel days where you're just weak, where it's physically weak or just spiritually weak and you have doubts. Don't let the devil get to you. As men, invoke Saint Joseph. He is our example of protecting beauty and being strong and courageous, being a guardian of beauty, a guardian of life, and whatever mission God has for you. He's calling you to something. God is calling you, and everything God does with love. There's nothing to be afraid of. And remember, the world is full of lies because the devil likes to bring so many lies to the world and get his way. But we have Jesus, our Lord. We have the Blessed Mother. Stay close to the Holy Family, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. And with everything happening in the world, I encourage everyone to please, this election season, choose life, choose Christ. I am Freddy, and I am out.